So I think it's kind of awesome. I'm going to start off with this first before we dwell on, your teaching and, meet the Simmons and enough said and everything else. But I
Hmm.
think it's kind of cool out of all days today, 21 years ago, the remembrance of 9/11. So I think it's kind of cool that we're joined by another veteran as yourself that was in the Air Force. So I want to ask you, where were you on 9/11? I don't think Mike was born, but where were you on 9/11?
Wow. On 9/11, I worked the night shift. I was in the Air Force at the time and I was a cook. So I wasn't scheduled to go in yet. And I remember my husband, Marcus, um, he called me and I was asleep and I was also pregnant with our oldest son.
Wow.
And he called me. He said, are you watching TV? Are you watching the news? I was like, no, I was asleep. I work late. He was like, you need to turn the TV on now. And he said, I need you to sit down. So I turned it on and I just remember it feeling like it was surreal. I didn't know what was happening. And at first I was like, this can't really be happening, but it was happening live. And I'm seeing a tower go down in New York. And
Mhm.
then I'm starting to get calls from my supervisor and they're like, okay, we need all hands on deck. We need you to come in to work. Everybody get dressed, get in, and then we'll brief you there. So it just felt so surreal and it was so uncertain. And it's a day that I'll never forget because it was a period of time where we didn't know how things were going to change. We didn't know what our future
Right.
was going to look like. And again, I'm pregnant at the time and I'm thinking, God, you have given me this blessing of a baby, but what world are we bringing this child into?
Right.
So that's kind of where I was on 9/11. So
Where were you stationed at?
Hurlburt Field in Florida.
Now
So right
was
by Eglin Air Force Base, Hurlburt. It's hard to say that, but
right,
yeah,
right.
in
Now
Florida.
was Marcus deployed or where was he at?
No, he wasn't deployed. He was actually he worked as well. So he's a bioenvironmental
Right, right.
technician. So he was at bio, and of course, one of their main jobs is to kind of assess any nuclear agents or any of that kind of stuff, OSHA EPA type deal.
Hmm.
So he's at work and he's being tasked, and they're calling him to work extra hours. So we're just trying to figure out what was going on at the time. It was crazy.
That is nuts, man. But thank you for your service. How
Thank
long did you
you.
do from the Air Force? How many years were you in?
I was in 8.5 years.
Now, because you have how many kids now?
I have three.
You have three. So you were with the firstborn. When you transitioned out, where were you at as far as motherhood? You already had your second child or?
Yes. So when I got out. So as a woman, we were able to, if you were pregnant, you could actually get out while you were either pregnant or soon thereafter you had a
Hmm.
child, and that was what I opted to do. I had deployed because of 9/11. I was one of the first troops that was sent to Bagram Air Base
Oh,
in
wow.
Afghanistan. So I
Right.
did that and deployed and met some really amazing people that really protected us. And again, I was a cook, so I was making sure their bellies were fed. So so I'm making the meals and they're going out like literally it was all hands on deck. It was the Rangers, it was the SEALs, it was everybody working together. It was
Right.
everyone that was just together trying to figure out what the heck was happening. And yeah, so I got out in 2004. So our middle son, I was actually pregnant with him. So he was soon to be born after that.
So let me retract this. And when you were deployed, just to get your perspective on it, at least from a female's perspective, how
Hmm.
was that? Knowing that you're there in Afghanistan, combat zone, you have your kids
Oh,
back at home with your husband and everything else. Like, how was that? I mean, for us guys, we're the machismo. We're like, we got it, we're good. But from a female's perspective, not because you're thinking about your kids and everything else. So how did you handle that?
it was hard. It was hard. This was back early 2000. So this is like 2000, early 2003 when I was there. So we didn't really use like Skype like that. Not
Hmm.
really at that time, not like it is now. We didn't really like FaceTime like we do now. So being in communication with family back home was like you went to a tent and you were on a phone and
Yeah,
the line for the tent was long because everybody's trying to
yeah.
have that one moment of, phone call with their loved ones. Yeah, you could email and Skype was like starting to kind of be popular, but it
Right.
wasn't that popular back then. So it was real old school. Like I'm literally listening to my husband's voice. and he would send pics via email of our baby who's growing and getting taller. And it was weird. Like, I started having these dreams about our baby. I would hallucinate.
Oh, wow.
I hallucinated. I was, because of some of the meds that we had, like the anthrax and all that stuff, like,
Right,
you know, it had an effect on us. And some of us were hallucinating. Well, I'm dreaming about my child. I'm thinking I'm holding my baby. I literally, in my tent, you know how they had those wooden posts kind of around to build the tent up? In my dream, I'm thinking I'm holding and rocking my baby. I dislocate my finger trying to hold my baby. And in the middle of the night, I'm like, oh crap, my finger's sticking out this way. I have to run to my first sergeant's tent. I'm like, yo, help me out. He's like, okay. So he's like my dad. He's like, okay, just wrap it up. Let's go. And I'm going. And there was these kids that was on duty. It was like the doctors were like asleep. And these kids didn't know what they were doing. They're like, I think we just need to just like prop it. I'm like, don't touch me. Wake the doctors up. I'll wait. Right. It was crazy. But to answer your question, it was a lot of turmoil, and it was hard. It was hard because I missed my husband. I missed my newborn baby. And it was difficult to deal with. But I will say that I'll never forget the camaraderie of the people that were there with me. They helped me through a difficult time. And I think we really were able to pull together. But it was really, really tough.